Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. It's Dara here again today, and we have Jack here once more. We're still talking about the Leeds Grand Tournament slash Super Major. And today we're going to be going through Jack's list, which went 4-1 at the Leeds GT. Going to be talking about things that he might change about it and things that are going to stay the same. So that's coming up next. Stay tuned, folks. All right, what's up, gang? So, Jack, how you doing, mate? All good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah,
Sweet.
finally cooled down.
Just the touch, right? So Jack, if you haven't already seen, Jack's gone 4-1 at a super major, the Leeds GT, which we were both attending last week as of time of recording, and brought quite a spicy list, I must say. A list that I slated you for so many reasons. I gave you so much grief for the list. Bullying is a term that might be applied in some ways. I was quite mean about the inclusion of several units, I would say. But you went out there, you proved me wrong, and you went 4-1, and I went 2-3. So you doubled my win rate. And you did it with this amazing list, which, all slagging aside, I think it's pretty awesome, and I love the way it functions. So, Jack, why don't you run us through the what it looks like to have peak World Eater competitive lists? What is that list? Hit us with it.
See, you keep using words like this, and I'm pretty sure I've said multiple times it's a load of stuff that I think looks cool and shove in a list and see if it works. And clearly it does, sort of. But okay, so it's just one battalion. So I've got three characters: Demon Prince with wings, obviously Khorne Alliance, Mark of Khorne with the sword. I've paid for an extra relic on him, which is the Mantle of Traitors, which is he gets full rerolls to hit. He can bounce his aura over to a core unit anywhere on the battlefield, so reroll wants to hit on a core unit basically, and he gets a free epic deed stratagem per game. For him, that basically means if I kill a character in combat with him, I get a free Skulls for the Skull Throne, so D3 CP back, because he's basically my assassin for Skulls for the Skull Throne, the secondary objective. He gets that to happen quite a lot, basically. So it just feels like a nice synergy for him. I've then got a Dark Apostle, Mark of Khorne, Illusory Supplication, so Transhuman to hit. Fairly standard in a lot of World Eaters lists from what I've seen. My third character, which is the first point that I think Dara dislikes, is Abaddon. Technically not World Eaters, but it's after 2 years of playing with a substandard codex. I kind of like bringing a broken model for once. It's good fun, and at least only a broken model rather than the broken army. I've paid for his warlord traits, so half of them don't really work because they're Black Legion locked, but fine. He gets +1 attack and plus D3 attacks against Imperium and gets to reroll charges natively, which is pretty handy. He obviously also has the 6-inch aura +1/2 charges, 6-inch aura +1 reroll ones to hit for everyone, and he can put 4 rerolls to hit on any core unit or character unit, or if it's a Black Legion unit, they also get rerolls to wounds. So normally, because he's accompanying my Terminators, which I'll get to in a bit, he puts 4 rerolls himself. The Terminators have reroll ones. All is right with the world. So then I've got my troops, just a squad of 10 cultists for backline objective holding, and actions specific. They're pretty much in basically for data spy salvage for data intercepts, just because they can sit at the back and do that every turn, all game long. And then just got 2 squads of 5 core berserkers with icons. They're in a weird spot for me in my list. I think they're like, I see them as action monkeys, but they're also quite killy. They're like a sort of 3rd or 4th wave for me at this point, if they survive that long. But people just hear berserkers and tend to just shoot them really quick, so they didn't really do that much in the leads. And then my elites is where it gets a bit meatier. I've got an 8-man block of Terminators, upgraded for 2 CP to Red Butchers for the movement shenanigans and to get to Strength 7 on the charge. And then the Black Rune of Damnation on the Terminator Champion, just to make them absurdly hard to shift, and also for a little bit of extra psychic defense that doesn't require a coin flip and 1 CP. So there's 8 of them. The champion has 2 weapons for an extra attack. I have 2 combi flamers in the squad, and I have 1 heavy flamer in the squad, just for Overwatch to be a bit more active in another phase, because that's not something that Wild Eaters are very good at. So stuff with loads of wound capped, like phase capped models around, like Abaddon or like Catan, with Necrons being good now. It's nice to be able to chip some wounds in Overwatch, basically. And then I have the rest of my elites is just 2 squads of 5 possessed. Yeah, I mean, they're not core, but the stat line and just the data sheet alone is way too strong for 28 points to not include, I don't think. I know a lot of people have been waiting for the models.
Our day has come.
Did not. Yes. Yeah, as of recording, I guess they've been announced for pre-order next week, 2 hours ago. So that is very hype, and I will be getting some. Even having converted some of my beakies into possessed, I will be getting some of the new models because they are gorgeous. Fast attack, just 1 individual chaos spawn because I had 25 points spare, and they're quite good to sit on objectives or to feed onto objectives.
So good.
To force a reaction, basically. And then have a squad of 6 raptors with Mark of Khorne. Again, give me a bit more options on secondaries. They can generally get me a guaranteed R&D if I need to take R&D. Otherwise, they can start on the board as a frenzy target because they're one of the few units that can get a guaranteed first, or all but guaranteed first turn charge with their 12-inch move. Because most deployment zones are 24 inches apart. If they frontline, I frontline, I can go 21 inches before charging. So, yeah, it's what I used to do with Warp Talons a lot, but the 6-man squad keeps points down, but also makes them useful for R&D. So there's that. And then heavy sport, I have 2 Vindicators with the Siege Shields for a 2-up save against shooting, and Havoc Launchers just because I had a few points and just some extra firepower. Because I felt towards the end of the old book, I was running a very melee focused aggro list and lacked shooting and into certain matchups with either a lot of shooting themselves or fight lasts a lot of places. I realized that was a significant weakness, and so I needed some shooting to be able to get around problems like that. And Vindicators are priced to move, 140 points with the shield, 145 with the Havoc Launchers.
Incredibly good value, in my opinion. Yeah.
Tough to say, 12 wounds, 2-up save against shooting. And I mean, ideally, they're not getting into combat. And then the buff to the Demolisher Cannon, or the Siege Demolisher Cannon, I think they're called now, for D3 plus 3 shots makes them really reliable. Strength 10 AP 4 as well. They've gained some AP in the Armor of Contempt world. That's always good. Doesn't help my damage rolling, but fine.
Just roll better, Jack. It's simple.
It is not just a battalion. I almost forgot, and I don't know how. I also have a fortification network. I have run a Noctilith Crown. So I ran it for Leeds. I had run it for my GT before Leeds as well. For Leeds, the main reason I felt confident running it was because I could see the terrain map, and you saw the really shaky PowerPoint art that I put together.
I loved it. I was so there for it. Yeah, it was so funny, man.
That I could definitely deploy on every map, roughly where I wanted to anyway. So the Noctilith Crown, for anyone who doesn't know, which is absolutely fair enough, it starts. So there's about 2.5 things to know about it. One is that it gives a 4-up invuln against shooting. It starts off as a 6-inch aura, wholly within 6 inches, and then that aura expands every battle round. So up to 9, then 12, then 15, and then 18 by turn 5. which is pretty nice, especially with the Vindicators that want to be sitting back anyway most of the time. Because of 2 up, 4 up, toughness 8 for 12 wounds, quite hard to
have
shit.
fun. Have fun.
Yeah. And then the other major part is a priest or psycho model at the end of your movement phase can do an action or start an action, and it completes at the end of your turn, and you get a CP. You can, if you roll like 2d6 under the leadership or something like that, you can change prayer or psychic power if you want. Obviously, doing an action turns off auras and stuff like that. Fortunately, illusory supplication is not an aura, so in the command phase, my apostle puts illusory supplication normally on my terminators, my butchers. End of the movement phase, he then sits down to do his action. End of my turn, I get a CP. The terminators still have illusory supplication. Especially starting on only 1 CP, because the butchers are 3 CP, and in their configuration, I'm using them. And then Abaddon has another CP spent on him, and the Prince has another one spent on him. So starting only on 1 CP, like being able to guarantee an interrupt in each of my opponent's turns is really powerful while still being able to spend in my turn. The other part, which I think you experienced a little bit on Friday night, was
just a small bit. Yeah.
It has a gun. It is a 6-inch range lashing warp energies, which is strength user, which is 8. It is -2. It's 2 damage, and it is assault 8. So from turn 2 onward, it gets exploding 6s. So I think
you roll like 4 or 5 6s when we.
Oh yeah,
when we matched up. Yeah, it was stupid. It has this weird ability when you roll the dice that it just rolls only 6s to hit.
It's only shot like 4 or 5 times in 10 games, and I haven't rolled under 11 hits yet. So
yeah, cool, great. This unit is broken. GW nerf now. So that's the list, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, as much as I slagged you and give out to you, it's a super tight list. We've got a lot of quite scary individual threats that can kind of operate individually to a point where, like, you don't need to Death Star your whole army into one ball that kind of rolls across the board. Like, you have the 5-man possess squads. I'm a particular big fan of, like, these independent operatives that run around, flip objectives, and just do a lot of work by themselves with a high quality data sheet, and also quite difficult to shift. Then you've got Abaddon and the death ball of Terminators rolling around, which is, I guess that's like the linchpin a lot of the time, right? That your army kind of revolves around. Yeah. Like, you got a CP battery in the back, and you've got pretty decent firepower, or at least a decent backfield presence with the Vindicators and probably the Cultist squad as well.
It's like the Vindicators are like, they're backfields, they screen, and then I wouldn't say they're decent, but like, it's not insignificant firepower. Like, it is useful, and it's something for the opponent to think about.
Yeah, and like, they can have a turn where they pop off, right, and they really punch a hole in something. Like, it does happen, and they're suddenly become more reliable now with their better shot, like D3+3, right? So I think they're quite interesting, and I like the list. Feels like it's very like fair. It kind of knows what it's doing. Where you've got, like, like I was saying, those independent operatives, a big death ball that in the middle that can kind of function independently as well if it needs to. Like, Abaddon can split off and just boogie by himself because he's safe, right?
Yeah.
Then you've all these nice little things thrown in, like the priests for your CP batteries, and the prince who kind of flies around and waits for an opportunity to jump out for assassinate, but even by himself is still an incredibly good character to go into things like, other Terminator bricks or vehicles in a lot of cases. So it feels like it's kind of like it takes the greatest hits from our 8th edition book that were quite popular towards the end, and the greatest hits from the new 9th edition book, and rolls it together. And it's weird because you kind of hear it all and you're like, well, I don't really see how it all works together necessarily, but it kind of doesn't have to, right? It's like the independent groups work so well by themselves that they don't necessarily need to synergize with the list as an entirety. And it's one thing that we talked about. You were kind of like, I wrote this list. I don't know if it really works together, but like, we'll find out. And like, it doesn't work together. It doesn't need to work together because it works by itself, and it picks up.
Because obviously our book came out around the same time as Nephilim, like a week after Nephilim.
Something like that.
With the CP changes, I was just looking data sheets that were like strong data sheets that you wouldn't need to pump CP into. Like it would be nice maybe sometimes if you needed a little bit extra punch, like with understrength units or whatever. But the aim is to build a list that is built around strong data sheets. And I think Vindicators possess, for us Red Butchers, are those data, and Abaddon obviously are those data sheets. Because I mean I have 4 core units. That's it. I have 2 squads of Berserkers, a squad of Terminators, and a squad of Raptors. Like the mantle on the Prince. I know you sort of pioneered it, and
I didn't pioneer it. It's all
it's Ron, isn't it?
Ron's. Yeah, I just jumped on it as soon as Ron said it. I was like, "Holy shit, that's like the best relic for my army." So I'm just going to run that all the time forever.
Because I think looking at some of the lists that Ron's written, he likes it because it bounces the aura around. But I never use that because all my core units die really quickly, apart from the Terminators, and they're normally with Abaddon getting reroll ones to hit anyway.
Yeah, but I find it really good for like the full rerolls on the Prince itself.
Yeah,
like I have had a lot of times where I've spiked like 3 or 4 ones, and then they've all turned into hits, and I'm like, that's the difference between a 50% win or hit rate and 100%. A lot of the time, so it can really swing.
I just go fishing. I anything that's not 6.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't do that, but I might. It's interesting that you say that. I'm not a brave man, though. I don't think I could take that risk.
it works like it's one of those like 60% of the time it works all the time.
Right? Yeah, for sure. It's cool though, because like the mantle, it has so many abilities that it works differently for everyone else. Because like for me, it does work in that sense, like where I bounce the rerolls. Because when I'm writing my list now, I actually do focus heavily on core. Like I bring an awful lot of core in my list, so I can be like, cool, it's here, 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 and then you've got it for all this other stuff. It's awesome, and it's just a very versatile relic to include. So I recommend anyone who hasn't looked into it, look into that one. It's quite a good spend for 1 CP, I think.
Yeah, I think from my point of view as well, because I know a lot of people do like core for the synergies, and like one of the like core tenets that you get taught about list building is look for synergies, right? You want your army to buff each other, but for us, I think it's a really double-edged sword because obviously core we have to pay the mark tax. We have 15 points on every unit. So suddenly stuff just isn't as efficient as it appears on the data sheet. So I that's why I really like Possess, to be honest. Because they're not core. 140 points for 5 of them is disgusting.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
like it's
for sure.
Disgusting. They're really hard to shift. Quite a lot of the stuff in my army is relatively hard to shift. There's obviously a couple of units, like the Berserkers and the Raptors are in today's world not that hard.
But they're not so easy, right?
Like armor conception. If I use cover right, yeah.
That's fine. So it's a really cool list, and it's one of those ones that when you rock up to the table, it's very difficult for your opponent to read what's happening, especially when you throw a fortification network down.
I don't know what's happening then. And
it gets even more confusing when you're kind of at a position where you're like 3-1 and you put a fortification network down, and your opponent's kind of like, how the hell is this guy 3-1 with a fortification network, and why is it a Stargate? But anyway, so the list is awesome. It works as much in the psyop side as it does in the actual on the table side. And I'm here for that kind of stuff. But so you've gotten a good bit of experience with this list now, right? You've taken it to two different tournaments, more or less.
Yeah.
And what do you think is like? Okay, so give me your like top performers in terms of like units, briefly as like a highlight, and give me your worst performers. Like who's in the relegation zone, who's in like they're hitting the top.
So top performers. Yeah, so I've this iteration of this list I actually only took to Leeds. I did take one that was very similar to it to Factorum a month ago. That had an extra squad of Berserkers and an extra spawn, but 1 fewer Vindicators. And I'm going to stick with the 2 Vindicators. I think they offer an extra dimension, which is too valuable. I wouldn't say they're top performers though. It's just they're nice to have. Top performers for me at Leeds, probably Abaddon, to be honest. He did power up a bit more in Leeds than he did in Warminster. The Terminators, the Butchers, obviously, like they often more than make their points back. And the CP battery sort of offsets the 3 CP spend at the start. Relegation zone. I'm not really sure actually. I would say I probably won't take a crown to anything I don't trust the terrain at. So factor on, because I go quite a lot. I know that they do a Jake called it the fortification test, and now they're going to rename it the crown test just because I brought one.
Nice.
And so they do check that you can deploy a fortification. So I know that I'll be able to take it there and have games, because there's nothing worse than rocking up and it's like, cool, I guess I'll just remove a piece of terrain or play with 1900 points.
Yeah.
Like, fine. And then obviously the Warhammer Tournament slot publish their terrain packs way ahead of time. So and they don't change too much. So I know that I will be able to fit so like Coventry, unless they do drastic to the map pack, I'll probably bring the crown to Coventry. Because for 100 points, it's too good.
Great. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I suppose, is there anything really that you can can you see this list changing, or do you think this for you is the list for the foreseeable?
So I'm not sure. I mean, the only thing that I could see changing it would be if there are some rules in the Demons Codex that allow us to soup some stuff in. Because in terms of relegation zone, I honestly think it's only really the Raptors. Because
I see that.
And it's not because they're bad, because they're not bad. They're just like, they lack combat punch. I think in the context of this list, anyway, they lack combat punch. And sure, they're fast, but if like Flesh Hounds are competitively priced,
and they have a deny or something,
and they have a deny, I could see them coming in for that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The Noctilith Crown has a Warp Locus.
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Cool.
I'll check my book.
I think it does. So you can spawn in some demons next to the crown, which, like, to be honest, aesthetically, that's fucking badass.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Not that you probably ever will, but
well, yeah, because it'll be backfield, right? So
yeah, but like you can kind of hold them there, though, right? It's depending on what you want to spawn in, right? So like you can be like, cool, I'll put the crown here the first turn, and like you can basically like aggressively deploy a unit, even though it's not on the board, and then it shows up. I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. I'm not sure yet. Maybe you bring in a skull cannon. I don't know. Skull cannon and 2 Vindicators. Why not?
I do want to look at the Demons book, because I think there's going to be some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the look of the new Flesh Hound profile, the stuff they previewed. Because they get like +1 to hit, wound on the charge or something like that.
I think they get +1 to damage. Yeah, I think so. That's cool. They look quite nice. We haven't seen how their
points,
how their anti-psychic works and how their points are going to work, because they were quite pointy before. They were quite expensive.
5 a go, I think.
Yeah, which is expensive, I think.
Yeah, for their own
big dog.
Sure. Yeah.
And hey, the new Start Collecting box has 10 of them, which like.
Sweet. Me, Satan.
So, like, I'm getting it because I got all the Bloodletters and Flesh Hounds in the world already. But if you don't,
I don't have Flesh Hounds.
That box is hot. Like, you get Bloodletters, you get Hurls, you got Flesh Hounds. I think there's another meme in there somewhere.
Empty.
Yeah. Anyway, you get Juggernauts too. Yeah, it's a pretty good box. Anyway, there's the potential for demons coming into your list in the place.
Potentially. I think it really depends on what rules they have, because obviously we've seen some leaks and we've seen some previews and stuff like that, but
we know nothing about points, right?
Seen the rules, like
yeah.
And as I say, I think as you say, and I think it's quite tight on points. I don't know where I can really make any cuts apart from the Raptors, because even the spawn is useful as like a trade piece early on. Because if I sit them on them, they have to react to that,
especially if it's that one that we played first, right? The one where you have to score points by being on the middle. Abandoned Sanctuaries, like
great for that.
And even the priority targets one, where you can just go back and score 3 points a turn by sitting on an objective, he's fantastic. I mean, and like they're not hard to kill, but they're not like 10 guardsmen with las guns, I'm going to kill them kind of a thing. So I find it interesting, right? Because people tend to go to a tournament, and in the reflection phase afterwards, a lot of the time they'll change their list, or they'll add things in, take things out, whatever. And that's just kind of how the post-tournament mindset is for a lot of people, and it makes sense. It's like you evaluate, you reevaluate, you consider new things, you see what wasn't working. But I think in a lot of ways, Jack, your list just works, and the
Yeah.
composition is pretty tight.
There's a lot of tech that I kind of want to try,
Yeah.
but I'm not convinced it's better. So I like it'll be test games that I try it in rather than
Yeah,
sort
and I think
of.
a lot of this is like it's quite a you list, if that makes sense. Like obviously I haven't gotten to know you a little bit better over the last while. Like I kind of I'm getting a grasp of your style of play and the sort of composition of lists. Like I think you're a big fan of reliability, and there's a lot of reliability in this list.
Because I'm bad at rolling dice.
Well, I mean, like it's a really good like mindset to have, reliability, because
Yeah,
it's like Lawrence from Tabletop always says, like it's how you win these competitive games. You stop relying on the dice, right?
yeah.
And I think your list has a lot of that going on. And to be honest, if I was to rewrite your list, like if you were to give me that list and say like, hey, what would you change about it? Like, yeah, I would consider maybe the Raptors aren't necessary all the time. They're nice little tech pieces, you said. What would I put in instead of them? I'm not really sure. I think the
Yeah,
demons is like an interesting point that you bring up that I hadn't really thought about. But apart from that, I'm like, your list, you know how to play it. It's playing well. It's winning games. I don't know, man. Like it could be the next big
yeah.
thing.
Well, I doubt that because there are some very good world eaters out there. There was another one at Leeds actually that was doing quite well. That is just a load of berserkers in rhinos, which I kind of love the simplicity of, and it's really fluffy. And like I like rhinos in general is something that I kind of want to have like one in just to slingshot people up the board.
The slingshot is
The
fantastic.
extra
Yeah,
three
yeah,
inch move is great.
yeah.
Um, I also like the idea of a land raider just because it's hard to shift, like toughness 9, and but I think it's a bit too much of a meme still. It's too
Yeah,
expensive. It
yeah,
is.
yeah.
And then yeah, as I said, dessert chord list would be great, but I don't think I have the balls to try it.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing now seems to be working for you,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
don't necessarily have a need to change it.
Yeah, I don't think I will change it. It's sort of like idle thoughts, and like because I like to write lists as like a hobby in itself, and so like I've been like try like Jamie to a certain extent where I just write lists even though I'm probably never going to end up running it. But
Yeah, sometimes like you two guys are talking and I'm just sitting there being like, you goddamn nerds. Like, but hey,
yeah,
you guys are getting the results and I'm not, so it speaks for itself, doesn't it? But yeah, so that was an awesome rundown of your list. Do you think there's anything to add? Like, is there anything that's like going unsaid about the list, or do you think we've kind of covered it with that?
I don't think so. Um, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think
I
I'm
suppose one other thing is like secondaries. It's a big talking point. Like, I know you don't really have go-to secondaries, but like, when you were building this list, were you building it with secondaries in mind or without? Like, kind of build the list and then see what secondaries crop up.
so largely the Raptors are in to give me the option for R&D. I feel like I can't really put more than one squad of Raptors in this because two squads of 6 would be ideal for R&D because you basically get guaranteed 2 quarters. Um, the Demon Prince with wings is in for skulls because, as I say, I'm determined to make that secondary work. I've taken it in 12 of 13 tournament games since the new codex, and I've only scored 0 on it twice so
That's
far.
a really good track
So,
record, man.
and I've actually only scored 5 on it once in a non-tournament game in Warhammer World. um, but every other time has been 10 or 15. So until it starts consistently not working, I probably like keep going to that a fair amount. The playstyle of the old codex is still fairly ingrained, so I still tend to pick the long war quite a lot as well. Just because I'm still deep in that mindset, even if we don't have as many trade pieces as we used to. Yeah, like R&D at Leeds, I took a few more times than I would normally. I don't normally take it.
I was in
So
your head though.
yeah, I just don't like its inability to
Yeah, yeah,
cap out. So I've gone away from it a bit, but then Leeds I sort of swung back to it and clearly it worked. So
yeah.
um,
It's an interesting one. It can be. I don't know. It's a weird one. I'm not.
yeah,
I've actually kind of swung off it,
I
interestingly,
think
but
yeah, I think in general I've written. So I've alluded to like Mark Whitaker did a great write up of our secondary specifically in the Discord, and I basically stole that and wrote a little cheat sheet for each of the
yeah, Mark's
missions.
brain is massive. It's so handy when he just like lends it out,
Yeah,
and then we can go around and get double. It's like I'm
right,
always
cheat
just like,
sheet.
all right, cool. What's Mark and Ron saying? I'm gonna just copy them.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, so I, yeah, so I've got a little cheat sheet. The only place that I veer off is I will tend to go to Skull Throne a lot, which is not the best secondary, but it's fun. I really
Yeah,
like,
fuck it. We're in Codex Meme Lord era, so it doesn't matter.
and the thing I like most about it is it's proper psyops. Like you
It
say,
so is. Yeah,
15
it
points
so
for this
is.
character, and immediately they're like, so sometimes they're like, oh shit, it's hiding, which are the times that I've scored zero on it. Other times they're just like, well, I'm just gonna play my game how I normally play, and hopefully I'll win. And then that's when you get 15. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
So it always works out. Yeah.
yeah, it's just good fun.
Awesome. That was a really nice rundown of a very competitive and very interesting list. I hope you folks found it enlightening and maybe inspiring. Maybe everyone's rushing out to buy Noctilith Crowns, watch them go out of stock. We made the drills go out of stock. Can we make the crown go out of stock? That is the next question. But I think that's pretty much it for this one, folks. Like we've talked through Jack's list, the ideas behind it, how it functions, and how it scores, and it's awesome. So if you've got any other questions for myself or Jack, preferably Jack, because I don't know how that shit works. But yeah, leave them down below. And yeah, we'll get back to them on that. And as always, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here to chat and recounting more of your victories and how you got there in the Leeds GT. I think we'll be really excited to see how you do in Coventry coming up pretty soon and any other GTs between then and now. But yeah, until then, Jack, anything to close it out, or are you happy enough with everything we've covered there?
Pretty happy with everything we covered. Yeah,
Awesome.
Mark knows more than me about my list probably, so I
So
stole a lot of developments from him.
Everyone ask Mark how Jack did. That's how that'll work. But yeah, so obviously everyone join our Discord if you want to hop in on the conversation and get talking to myself, Jack, or any of the other fantastic people hanging out on the Red Path. We can talk lists and don't listen to me, listen to him. He's better. And what we will do is wrap that one up for now. So thanks everyone for tuning in. You all stay healthy, stay safe, and kill men burn.